Hey there YouTube, this is Here to Learn 442. I'm getting ready to load up some 9mm for the range for tomorrow. I've already got my turret on here set up. I've got my sizing and decapping die. We then will prime on the upstroke after that, or the downstroke I should say after that. Then it'll turn here to our powder through expanding die. Then it will turn to our bullet seating die. Then it will turn to our factory crimp die, Lee factory crimp die. So, like I said, I already have the turret on here. Everything's set up for the loads that I'm going to run. I'm going to run Ogden tight group, along with some plated 115 grain round nose bullets from Extreme Bullets, and Winchester small pistol primers, and the brass is all mixed head stamp. So first I'm going to go ahead and get the powder measure set up on here. I'm going to need my handy dandy riser. It's got a little O-ring on here, seals it up fairly nicely, but it can be a bear when you're taking it apart. So that riser gets the powder measure up above the other dies, and also up above the primer feeder, which I'll show you in just a minute here when I set that up. So I like to have the powder measure sit kind of just over the top of everything, and the primer feeding mechanism is going to sit right here. So with it sitting like this, the powder measure is not going to hit and get bound up. I'm going to double check my discs, make sure that I'm using the proper one for this load. Always consult the reloading manual for your loads, at least as a starting point. Start at a minimum, or a minimum of 10% below the maximum charge, and work your way up from there. But always consult the reloading manual. Don't just, dump a whole bunch of powder into a case and think that's okay. Alright, so let's see, we're using the 0.40, and for this loading, let's see, in 9mm, we are going to go with 4.7 grains of tight group with the 115 grain Extreme Bullets. Here's some of my load data. I don't know if you care, but 4.7 grains plus or minus 0.1 grain powder, tight group powder. Overall length 1.151 inches with a light crimp, using that factory crimp die from Lee. And so yeah, I am going to use the 0.40 cc disc with the tight group, and it does come in just at plus or minus 0.1 grain for the most part. I haven't had it be very far off of that at all. The first 2 or 3 throws with the Lee Pro Auto Disc powder measure, I think that's what it's called, The first 2 or 3 throws I always throw back in because they're inconsistent. After that, I will double check with my scale here. This little Gemini 20 scale has been great. I love this thing. I would definitely recommend it if you're on a budget and want a good scale. It's not going to do amazingly large loads. You know, I wouldn't be trying to check weights on 50 caliber rounds, but for small stuff it's just fine. So we're all tightened up here. Go ahead and dump in some tight group. I really like this powder tight group. It's pretty accurate, and it's got a fairly low recoil as long as you don't overcharge it. So before we get moving too far here, get out some 9mm cases, and I'm gonna go ahead and make sure that this powder measure is on. Nope, it's the other way. Alright, and we'll go ahead and get over here. This case hasn't been deprimed yet, so I'm going to use it. Nope. Guess I should change the shell holder. I was reloading 223 the other day. And 223 shell holder, which is a number 4 from Lee, doesn't fit a 9mm case. However, the number 19 does. So that should be helpful. Let's see if I can get a little bit more light here. That might be a little more helpful. Alright, so once again, this case hasn't been deprimed yet, so you use it. There's first powder drop. Gonna dump that back in. Second powder drop. Dump that back in. Just for safety's sake, third powder drop. Dump that back into the hopper. Tap it a little bit. Now I'm gonna go ahead and check the weight of the next powder drop. Next couple of powder drops, actually. So I'm gonna turn my scale on here. Oh no, unless the battery's dead. Maybe the case. Nope, battery's a little corroded. Alright, well, I'll be right back after I get some new batteries. Okay, I'm back. I replaced the batteries in my scale here. So now we can check and make sure that this load is going to be right where we want it. So I'm going to go ahead and use this case with this spent primer in it and tear out the scale here. So went from 62.3 grains to 0. So now I pull this off, I'm at negative 62.3. Well, back and forth a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and check this. I should be 4.7 grains plus or minus 0.1. And I'm not seeing that, I'm seeing 4.5. So what I'm going to try here is to simulate the, well, first I'm going to double check that this is zeroed out properly, and it is. So I'm going to try and simulate the effects of the rotation from when I will be running these rounds. And now I'll check the load weight, charge weight, and it comes up to 4.68, 4.70. Okay, it's settled at 4.70. So that's right where we want it. And I'm gonna go ahead and double check again in the same way. So I came up 0.2 grains just by moving the turret around, as I would do when I'm operating it to reload the ammunition. And I think that's just because the voids in the 0.4 cc chamber in the disc for the Lee Pro Auto Disc powder measure, the voids in there get filled up. The powder gets shaken a little bit as it turns. So checking it again, we're at 4.72 grains, so we're definitely sitting right where we want to be when we're turning the turret. So that's 2 loads in a row, turning it around. It's come out okay. So now we know that it's throwing the proper weight. I'm going to get it indexed back around. Set my scale off to the side here. And next I'm going to fill up my primer feeder with Winchester small pistol primers. So I'm just going to put this down here, turn this over, slowly slide the sleeve apart from the casing that holds the primers. Sometimes they stick a little bit, they get knocked around sideways. So there we go. All the primers are in the primer feeder. Going to go ahead and just tap on the side here until most of them flip over. If any of them don't flip over properly, then I'll have to grab it and do it manually, like this one. And there you go. So pretty easy to get 100 primers fed in there. Go ahead and put the cover on, and then I'm going to twist it so that it locks in place. And I'm going to go ahead and hang it and shake it back and forth to get the primers all filled up in the drop tube here. Alright, I've got my 115 grain bullets out here. Oh, I did have one primer that missed the primer feeder and I didn't see, so we're going to go ahead and pull the cover back off and drop it in there. Alright, I'll reposition it there. Now, most people don't lube pistol cases at all. I like to lube one every once in a while, especially the first round in a batch, and you know, maybe every 20 or 30 rounds after that, 20 or 30 cases after that, I will lube another. I've got my bowl here, my lube, bullets, cleaned cases. They've all been tumbled in walnut media, and we can go ahead and get started. Deprime, resize, reprime, charge. I like to put the bullet on there before I drop the ram to the bottom of its travel, just because sometimes you get a little bit of splash of the powder. Up there to seat, back to crimp, and that round's done. So once again, resize and deprime, or decap, reprime, drop powder, set the bullet, seat the bullet, crimp the bullet. That cartridge is done. And I'm just going to repeat this. Uh-oh. Oh, there we go. Case wasn't seated properly in the shell holder there. Worked its way over. Fine now. Alright, so this is going to be the 5th round since I started doing this. So we're going to go ahead and check the powder drop once more before I set into really doing things here, really moving along. So this is another case that hasn't been deprimed yet. I'm going to go ahead and check the powder drop on it. .74, definitely right within that 4.7 plus or minus 0.1. So this system is very consistent with tight group as far as metering powder. A lot of people give the Lee Pro Auto Disc powder measure and any of the Lee products in general some very bad press, but especially their powder measures, and I have had absolutely zero problems with this one. It always meters for me within plus or minus 0.1 and almost always within 0.05, to tell you the truth. So I would highly recommend the Lee product here. Even if guys are saying that they're not good products, I've had good experiences with them. I really like this classic turret press from Lee. Mouth on that case is all gunked up. Looks better now. That's one nice thing is reloading your own ammunition. You get to see beat up cases that somebody else would think is just junk turn into nice new shiny ammunition. And it's always something nice to talk about at the range. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this batch out. You guys, I'm sure, don't want to watch me do this for the next, let's see, what do I have here? 4, 8, 9. So I'm gonna reload at least 100 rounds. So I'm sure you guys don't want to watch me load another 91 rounds. So I'm going to cut this off. But I hope that you found this video to be informative. I hope that you found it entertaining in some ways, and you know, that you can see that the Lee products are not quite as bad as their reputation may be. They are definitely less expensive, but that does not mean that they are a lesser product. So as always, keep learning and share your knowledge. Thank you very much for watching.